Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Hey guys, Jeff, Britt, and Brad back with you. What a great guest.
Man, that was awesome.
We had with Greg Maddux. I mean, you talk about the art of pitching. Like, he's your poster child, right? Like, didn't have Pedro Martinez heater, didn't have Smoltzy slider, but like, go ahead real quick.
I mean, he's just sitting in his den in Las Vegas, and you're talking to a guy that just seems like a normal guy. But I mean, you look at his stats. He pitched 23 years, first vote Hall of Fame, Braves Hall of Fame, Cubs Hall of Fame, World Series winner, won 4 consecutive Cy Youngs, only pitcher in the major leagues to win 15 games for 17 straight seasons, 18 Gold Gloves, 8-time All-Star, 355 career wins, one of only 10 pitchers with more than 300 wins and 3,000 strikeouts. And also as a fan, you loved it because his games didn't last very long.
Oh, 2 hours.
Oh, dude, you could get to Turkey. I remember when I used to go to games, man, we'd be home by 9:30.
Yeah, it was so fun, and he was great to talk to. I mean, we all grew up in Atlanta. You know, you ended up playing with him. In fact, did you ever hit against him?
I did in 2006 when he was with the Padres, and it was a surreal moment for me. 3 people I remember I faced that I just was like, first time I faced Randy Johnson, first time I faced Roger Clemens, and then Maddux. And it was 06, and I remember he threw me a first pitch probably that far off the plate. The umpire balled it, and I just kind of backed out of the plate for a minute, and all of a sudden I heard Maddux undress the umpire, catching the ball back.
Really?
And I remember turning around to the umpire like, are you not going to do anything about this?
Greg Maddux.
He kind of looked at me. Next pitch, same spot. Strike. And I'm like, I see how this is going to go. But you know what's awesome too is my wife's going to kill me for telling this story. She is. Like, I told her today, she's like, you better not tell it. I'm going to tell it. 2010, Mike Maddox's brother was the pitching coach with the Rangers then. You know, he just won it again, but he came back to Texas. So he was our pitching coach, and we went to the World Series, and Katie got on the bus for game 1 of the World Series in San Francisco. And I think one of the cool things with Greg and Mike, they're like this, man. They're thick as thieves. Greg flew everywhere to support them this year. They're great with each other. And Katie is on the bus, and Maddux sits right next to her.
Greg.
Mike. Yeah, Greg to come to the field for game 1. And Katie starts talking to him, and she's like, oh, did you ever go to a World Series?
She didn't know who he is.
Greg was just... he could have been whatever. And he just kind of was like, yeah, you know, I got a chance to play in a couple and this and that. And she finally put it together. And growing up in Atlanta, she knows great. But after game 1, I'm sitting on the bus and she goes, you're going to kill me. And she told me what she did. And I was so embarrassed. I went up to Maddux the next day, you know, it just.
But he's a guy that's not an imposing athlete.
No.
It would be an easy mistake to
For sure. I love it. When we go to Cabo on our golf trip every year, it's so great because you have all these big athletes, you know, big baseball players, and you have Maddux, and people are just probably like, that's a caddy, you know, like they don't think. But the advice he has, which I love, because I like it because in today's game, he is one guy that's a realist. He says, look, if you have velocity, that's only going to help you.
Yeah.
But I think what he gives a great example to parents, to coaches in this, that you have to be able to pitch. You have to game plan, you have to pitch. And if you can do that, you're going to be a step ahead.
He talked a lot about mechanics and how that was the key. The key was if you got your mechanics right, you're going to know where the ball's going to go.
Yeah, you know, he also pitched his whole career. You said 23 years, no significant injuries.
Yep.
And we dove into that a little bit, and what we found out was, you know, he pitched when he was a kid, 10, 12 starts a year, even through high school. He wasn't pitching all year round. No. And so he took care of his arm.
I remember Max Scherzer talking about that, saying, I'd rather have my bullets for when I'm in college.
Yeah.
You know, the minor leagues coming up, not when I'm 12 years old. Yeah, I think Greg was a perfect example of that. So
great episode.
Great, awesome, man. He's one of the best to ever do it. Hope you enjoy it. Jeff Francoeur here with Pure Athlete. Before we get to today's guest, I want to share with everyone that we have our first partnership with Booster. Now, Booster is the high school sports #1 athletic fundraising for teams and groups. And their owner and CEO is a good buddy of mine. Go to church with him and a great guy. And instead of me telling you what it is, I'm going to bring him on. So Chris Carneal, thanks for joining us.
Jeff, thanks so much. So excited to sponsor Pure Athlete. Love your message, love your vision, love the heart and the values behind it. I'm a former college athlete. I'm a coach of my boys and my daughters as well, basketball and baseball. And our company I started 20 years ago, we work with schools, K through 12, and we serve them by raising funds. The past 20 years, we've raised schools, teams, and groups over $600 million, and we want to continue to serve more schools. So if you're interested in hearing how we can come to your sports team, your school, or your group, choosebooster.com.
Again, go to choosebooster.com. Chris, thanks for being a part of this. A big supporter of youth athletics, high school athletics, and we're looking forward to a good partnership with you, man.
Absolutely. Love what you guys are doing. Look forward to serving and helping schools raise funds.
Back to Pure Athlete. I am Jeff Francoeur along with Britt Lee and Brad Williams. Today, guys, I'm joined by, I don't want to make him feel old, but one of my heroes growing up and watching him pitch his whole career. Greg Maddux, thanks for coming on with us, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
How are things out on the West Coast these days?
Well, they're good. I just got back from the beach down in Dana Point and, cold in the morning and perfect in the afternoon. So perfect golf weather. I see the rest of the country's getting slammed right now, but, out in California here in Vegas, it's still pretty nice.
Yeah, I was going to say, we were 3 degrees, feels like 3 degrees this morning when I took my kids to school. It was rough.
Yeah, brutal.
I think the studio is about 5 degrees.
Yeah,
right
it's
now
cold
over here.
down here too. But before we get going, talking about kind of youth sports and your journey, just kind of tell everybody what you're up to these days.
Well, 100% retired. Traveling, playing a lot of golf, watching a lot of Netflix, trying to take care of my body a little bit so I could play golf every day. And that's about it. Just 100% retired.
Nice. Good for you. Living it. Well, kind of just, as we get going here, just kind of walk us through a little bit. We'll get to a little bit of your career, but like what did Little League look like for you? I know you and your brother are real close, Mike, who did win a World Series this year. We'll give him the shout out.
Yeah.
With the Rangers, but what did y'all's Little League look like?
Well, we started on the Air Force Base, so we played against all the Air Force brats, and Dad was a coach, brother was, he's 4 or 5 years older than me, so when I was 5, he was 10. That was a pretty big age difference, but I was always allowed to tag along and help Shag when he was practicing, and when I got old enough to play, my dad coached me as well. So we were on the Air Force Base. Obviously, the talent level was probably not as good as most Little League places, but we had fun playing, and we went out and played for a couple hours and went by and got a big gulp and got ready for school the next day.
What was it like growing up on a base?
We didn't know any different. We were in Madrid, Spain for one. That's where my Little League started. And, we didn't know any different. We went to class, we came home, we played sports. Whatever season was in season was the sport we played. We played a lot of football and basketball as well.
How old were you when you moved to Vegas, Greg?
I was 9. I was 9, and then I played here at Nellis Air Force Base here in Vegas, and made the All-Star team, and we lost our first game, and our chances for the Little League World Series were gone.
So, Greg, when you were in Vegas, you said in Spain you played whatever sport was in season. Did you carry that on when you came to Vegas and through high school?
Yeah, absolutely. I played. I stopped playing football probably when I was in 7th or 8th grade. There was a little bit of a size issue. Everybody was 30, 40 pounds heavier than I was. So I stuck to baseball and played a lot of basketball too growing up.
Was baseball always the first love, though?
Actually, it was basketball. I probably spent more days in the summer playing basketball than I did baseball, when I was a teenager. And my sophomore year of high school, I didn't play baseball the previous year or two, and our last game was Friday. One of my teammates go, "Hey, baseball tryouts are next Monday. You want to try out for the baseball team?" So, being a sophomore in high school, I said okay, and Monday I went and tried out for the baseball team, and realized that I kind of threw it further than everybody else, and just kind of went from there.
So let me get this right. Your 8th, 9th grade year, there was no baseball for Greg Maddux.
We did play softball. Junior high school, we had fast pitch softball, and I played shortstop, and I don't know if I hit first or eighth. I can't remember that far back, but I do remember playing 8th and 9th grade softball, and also 8th and 9th grade basketball as well. And our high school was 3 years, and that was when I started playing baseball again, was my sophomore season.
Talk a little bit. We talk a lot on this podcast with the parents and, of course, mom and dad and stuff. What was that dynamic for you with them? I mean, were they, just have fun doing what you were doing, push you a little bit? What type of relationship was that like?
It was actually really good. Parents drove us to practice all the time growing up as kids. And then once high school started, my dad told me, "Well, that's all I know. You got to listen to your coaches now." And that was pretty cool. I was about probably 15 or 16 at the time when he said that. And I remember being 20 years old and giving up a double to Dave Parker in Cincinnati. And he goes, "I wish you would have threw him your curveball right there," or something like that. And I said, "Hey, Pops, remember when I was 14 and you said, 'That's all I know, listen to your coaches now'? Well, I'm going to still do that." Okay. So, and, it was that kind of a relationship. It was very supportive, didn't really push us a lot. I think we pushed ourselves. I think the example my brother had set the years ahead of me is what helped me and pushed me probably more than my parents did. And, they were just fans. They were more fans than parents, and wanted us to do well, and didn't matter. Come Thanksgiving and Christmas, we were going to spend the holidays together.
So, Greg, going back to, you said, you really didn't start getting serious about baseball till maybe 10th grade or so, and you could throw the ball further than anybody else. Is that when you really started to learn to pitch, or had you been throwing stuff before then?
Well, I pitched in Little League when I was 12, and obviously it was pretty easy for me being a 12-year-old throwing harder than everybody. But when I was 15, I met a pitching coach named Ralph Meter. And I think I was 16 years old. He told me, "You're going to throw hard enough to get drafted. And you're going to have to learn movement, location, change of speeds. And that's going to give you a chance to have success once you are drafted." And I bought into it, not like today where, if you threw 92, you want to throw 94, then you want to throw 98. It's all about the velo. It was all about movement back then. It was how much can you get your ball to sink? How late can you make it sink? And it's just kind of how we learned here in Vegas. There was Mike Morgan was ahead of me. My brother was ahead of me. And then we all learned from the same guy. And he actually passed away at the end of my junior year, but he had laid down the foundation of movement, location, change of speeds, then velocity. And, that's just something that that's how I learned to pitch when I was 15, 16 years old. And, I was still doing it when I was in my 40s. So a lot of credit to Mr. Meter, and just great advice to receive at such a young age.
Greg, we have to listen to Jeff brag about all his state championships constantly here in Atlanta. But I read somewhere that you guys won a state championship in baseball as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. My junior year, we won state. And senior year, we didn't quite get there, but we were the last team to lose that year. But, we got a state championship our junior year, and it's pretty special. felt just as good as the World Series, really, to be honest with you. I mean, it sounds weird, but that state championship breaks right up there with the World Series in '95 as well.
No, seriously, that's as we talk to a lot of athletes, we hear that same story. Is that high school was it a great experience for you playing baseball in high school?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think we were fortunate enough we got to play on the field at UNLV that year, and we had a huge dog pile. And I still keep in touch with a few of the guys on that team. We have a fishing trip. We go to Alaska. There was a couple guys that made it, and that was 83 when that happened. So just the lifelong friendships you make through baseball are pretty special.
I know you're very, look, not everybody who can move the ball doing whatever is going to win 300 something games and be in the Hall of Fame, but how do you fight back today? Because I know you talk about it, Smoltzy, Glav, guys forever, but where they preach velocity, 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 what do you tell parents that it's like, it's okay if your kid doesn't throw 98?
Well, I mean, it's all about execution. It's about making the pitch you're supposed to make, and obviously, if you're throwing it at 95, it's better than if you're doing it at 88. But at the same time, 88 can still play. I mean, it's all about location, change of speeds. Velocity allows you to get away with more mistakes. So, the slower you throw, the better you have to pitch. The more times you have to make your pitches. Velo just allows you to get away with mistakes more than the guy that doesn't throw as hard as you.
So, Greg, I'm curious. You're always known for having unbelievable command, and today, we see so many major leaguers that don't have command at all. How did you develop, the control that you had?
Repetition. I mean, understanding your mechanics. I always felt like if I did everything mechanically correct, it would be impossible for the ball not to go where I'm aiming it. So, that was kind of my approach on that. And kind of like a golf swing, if you make a perfect golf swing and you hit it in the center of the club, it's going to be a good shot. And, releasing a baseball was no different.
Greg, you supposedly were not a very physically imposing player in high school.
No.
What did the Cubs see in you that a lot of folks didn't see in you to make them draft you in the second round?
Well, I think obviously it was my fastball. I think everybody gets drafted because of their fastball. I had a pretty good fastball coming out of high school, believe it or not. I mean, I got the reputation of somebody that doesn't throw hard. But, when I was 18 years old and signing, I mean, I threw pretty hard. And I don't think
Were you throwing 94 or so, weren't you? 95?
I was throwing 92 with movement and sink. I mean, back then, I think the major league average was about 88. So, I mean, I was above the radar back then when I first came up. Size-wise, I was 150 pounds. So, I had the body of a 40th round pick, but I had a good fastball. I had a first round pick fastball. So I think that's what they saw. And, it's all about the fastball to get drafted. Very, very few guys get drafted because they have a good curveball. The majority of the guys, they've got a fastball, and then you kind of work off that.
Let's talk a little bit too, switching gears in this day and age with arm care, right? And kids play, like you said, you played basketball, so you had a break. The kids that are playing baseball year round.
Yeah.
How do you take care of your arm and not, I mean, we talk so many times. You've seen Dr. Andrews have a thing where they're doing Tommy Johns on 13-year-old kids now. Like, it's ridiculous.
One of the biggest things is when we were growing up, we played baseball during baseball season. So, I mean, we played 3-4 months a year. I was making 10 to 12 starts probably in high school. And that's 10 to 12 starts a year. So if I'm throwing, say, 10 starts, 100 pitches a start, you're at 1,000 pitches. And then, if you look at the club ball, I mean, those guys are playing year round. How many pitches a year are they throwing? They got to be throwing probably 3 or 4 times as many. So I think, now the injuries are going to come in, or you're more likely to get injured just because you're out there 3-4 times longer than somebody else.
Do you see injuries go up too because of lack of mechanics of kind of what you talked about too?
Just how hard can I throw it constantly every pitch? I think balls to the wall. I'm going to air it out and I'm going to throw it somewhere in the cage and hope it's not close enough to hit. And they swing at it. Type mentality. I think we were more concerned with executing a pitch than how hard we can throw it. I felt like if I could throw the ball 90 miles an hour, and if I hump up, it's going to be 92. Can the hitter really tell? I mean, if we're on the side of the road watching the cars drive by, which ones are going 90 and which ones are going 92? You can't tell. So I think as a hitter and the way your eyes work, it was never that big of a deal to try to throw it an extra mile or 2 harder. It was always more important to execute the pitch properly and put it in a good location with movement and change speeds.
Greg, sticking with arm care for a minute, this is the time of year where everybody's kind of ramping up. I mean, at the pro level, college level, high school level, how did you ramp up? What advice would you give to high school kids?
Well, the first thing is you have to have a good shoulder exercise program. You have to be able to take care of your shoulder and your elbow. And I was doing the Jobs back in high school. I was fortunate enough to have a very good trainer when I was in high school, and he taught me how to take care of my arm properly, do the correct exercises. And, Jobs were a year-round thing for me. Lift your 3 and 5 and 7 pound weights, 5 to 12 minutes a day. I think it's what it took me, but it was every day. And kept them in my kitchen. Had a kitchen counter I could lay on and do my shoulder exercises and, go play golf the rest of the day in the off season. But also, for me, it was like this time of year, it was a lot of long toss. It was long toss in January. And then maybe get on a mound once or twice before spring training. And then realize you had the month and a half of spring training to get ready for April, which is when the season starts.
So Greg, what was your, and I'm sure it changed over, but when you started in the major leagues and when you finished, what was your game day routine? Like, how would you get yourself ready for a team in terms of preparation, warm up, and things like that?
Yeah. So it was every day. I mean, it was, if you pitch at, let's say you pitch on Sunday. So Monday you would come in, watch yesterday's tape, see what mistakes you made, maybe see what you did well. Tuesday was all about the next team you're facing. So if I was going to face, whoever, the Mets, then it was who's leading off for the Mets. And you start with the leadoff hitter and you start putting in his tape and you watch him, you watch the second hitter and you go all the way down the lineup. And it was a lot of video. Obviously, the second day was my side day. That was maybe try to fix any mechanical flaws you had in your previous game. Maybe your changeup wasn't as sharp as you would have liked it to have been, so you're gonna focus a little bit on your changeup. Maybe whatever didn't work in your last start was your main focus on your side day. And then the next 2 days were take care of your legs and arm and prepare your game plan for the team you're about to face.
You look at today's game, who are a couple of the pitchers that you enjoy watching and why?
Well, obviously I loved watching the Texas pitchers last year. Evaldi I thought was pretty special. I thought very good game plan, very good stuff, student of the game, prepared properly. It's a shame DeGrom got hurt because, that dude, he's Nolan Wright on steroids. Yeah. Just probably it's the most dominant pitcher I've ever seen in my life when he's healthy. And, that was a real treat. I just like, obviously I like all the old guys, Kershaw and Wainwright and having a brain cramp, the guy from Houston. uh,
Verlander.
Verlander. Thank you. I like, I'm being old. I like to root for the old guys.
What was it like for you? I know you coached some at UNLV, working with some of these college guys. How was that for you after all those years?
It was fun. It's nice to be ignored by millennials, for a couple of years. I didn't mind that one bit, but, there were, if I had 15 pitchers, I had 2 or 3 that were 100% all in. You probably had 7 or 8 that were going to college to get an education. They knew there was no life after college as far as baseball goes. So, we made it fun, for those guys. We had a good time, and we joked around and did what we can to try to get better.
Greg, another thing you're kind of known for, or not kind of, big time known for, was your mental game and outthinking hitters and your game planning and all that. When did that start? Were you born thinking that way, or did somebody kind of teach you an approach?
It all started, I spoke earlier. I don't know if I mentioned Ralph Meter's name when I was 15 or 16, when I was learning movement and velocity. On Sundays, we would have workouts or scrimmages. And Marty Barrett was in AAA at the time with Boston. And I was 15 or 16 years old, and I'm facing Marty Barrett, his AAA hitter. And Mr. Meter's back there behind the mound, and he's like, start him off with a curveball. Get your strike with a curveball. And then he goes, now throw your fastball up and in. So, it started right there. And you had to be able to execute pitches and to have success. So I would say that's when it started. And that's when I realized you have to pitch and not just brain dead heave.
Who was your favorite guy to face in the big leagues, good or bad, for reasons?
I mean, I don't know if I had a favorite guy to face. I mean, I'd say the pitcher, because I was more likely to have success against them. But Randy Johnson didn't scare me half as much as Luis Gonzalez did if you're facing Arizona.
All right, let me rephrase that. Who's the best hitter you ever faced?
Obviously, the best was Barry Bonds, no question. But I've said it before too. He was also the easiest hitter to face, because if it mattered, you just walked him. You didn't have to pitch to him. So, very rarely were you in a situation where you had to pitch to him. But, Barry was the best. I'd say, the hardest to get a strike on would be Tony Gwynn. I think Tony Gwynn was probably the best pure hitter, and then you had guys like Sheffield or Piazza. These guys, you can't make a mistake to these guys. They're going to whistle it somewhere. And, there was always 1 or 2 guys on every team. You had to pick your battles. You kind of learn to beat lineups and not hitters. So you have to, sometimes you have to pick your own fights and realize, you got to get 27 outs, and you're not going to get that guy 2 or 3 times.
What was your favorite game you ever pitched in the big leagues?
Favorite game?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I mean, obviously, probably your first start's a big one. I remember my first start in Cincinnati, and, the World Series game was huge. Had a game with Mike Morgan in St. Louis. I mentioned Mike Morgan earlier. We both had the same mentor growing up. He was a few years ahead of me. There was that hometown connection, and we had a nice 1-0 game it was like an hour and 45 minutes. I mean, it was just it was a pretty cool game that day.
Well, speaking about shortening games, you had a philosophy I've heard you talk about not wasting pitches. And, we hear a lot of times on broadcast today, guys are go 0-2 and they're going to waste a pitch. Talk about your philosophy on that, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, yes, Frenchie, what's the hardest count to hit in?
0-2.
Probably 0-2, right? I mean, can we agree on that? So to me, as a pitcher, that's when I have to make you hit. I got to make you hit 0-2, because that's the hardest count to hit in. And I mean, if you just look at the law of averages, I think 0-2, the league hit like 160. And then 1-2, it went up to 180, and 2-2, it went up to 220, and then 3-2, it went up to 320. So, I mean, 0-2 is the time to get them out. I mean, throw your best fastball, put it in a good spot, and make them hit.
Greg, I mean, how far into a game, into the first inning or whatever, did you kind of know if you had your stuff or not? Like where you said, this is going to be something where I'm on, or this is going to be a game where I'm going to have to grind it through?
No, I never really looked at it that way. You know, I tried really hard to only worry about the next pitch. And I think I got pretty good at it the more I did it. You know, the only pitch that matters is the next pitch. The last pitch you threw or the last 10 pitches you threw might help you with your pitch selection for that next pitch. But I was all about the next pitch. And, you know, the last thing I wanted to do was worry about the outcome of the game, especially in the third or fourth inning.
So we've talked a bunch, obviously, about pitching, but you won 18 Gold Gloves, which is unbelievable. You know, how did you develop, you know, as a fielder? You obviously had to focus a lot on that. And what would you say to young pitchers today about learning the craft of fielding their position?
Well, you have to be a complete player, you know. I mean, I always consider myself a baseball player, not a pitcher. I mean, I played defense and I hit and ran the bases and did all that. And I figured if I did it better than the guy I was facing, then I had a better chance to win. It was that simple. And, you know, I think my delivery allows me to be in a better fielding position than most pitchers. And I think that definitely helps. But at the same time, you know, you take ground balls just like a shortstop or a third baseman would. And I took my share of ground balls and thought about the proper fundamentals of what you have to do to throw to each space correctly and worked on it. And, you know, I just tried to be a complete player.
What would you tell, you know, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid watching this, you know, wanting to pitch at the high school level and beyond? What are a couple of things that you would tell them to really focus on, you know, as they prepare for the upcoming season and just in general?
I think it's important to enjoy practicing. You know, I think that's one of the things that will help is if you actually enjoy practicing and trying to get better. You know, depending on the kid, I think you have to trust your coaches. I think if your coach is telling you what you need to work on, I think that's where you should start. Yeah, I mean, you always want to keep your strengths and improve your weaknesses. And but the bottom line is, you know, kids that age, even the kids in the minor leagues in pro ball, I think it's important to have fun doing what you're doing. Enjoy your teammates. Do whatever you can to win the day. I mean, try to get better. Whatever you have to do today to try to get a little bit better is that's the goal. And enjoy it while you're doing it.
Speaking of teammates, if you had to allow a hit to somebody or strike the other person out, which one with Glavine and Smoltz are you doing?
I mean, I'd like to strike them both out. I mean, it'd be fun to drill them too. It might be fun to stick one in the ribs too, but at the same time, I think I'd probably rather strike out Smoltzy and give
just
up
to
a
shut
hit,
him up
and give up a hit to Glav because I know Glav can't run the bases. He's pretty slow.
and to shut Smoltzy up.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
I was just going to say, Greg, are you a fan today of Major League Baseball? You know, what are your thoughts about the state of the game today?
You know what? I do like it. I like most of the rule changes. I like the hitter's clock. Everyone wants to call it the pitcher's clock, but it's the hitter's clock. Now the hitters have to get in there and hit. So I like that. I do like baseball. I watched a lot of the playoffs last year and enjoyed that. I don't follow it on a day-to-day basis like I used to. But at the same time, I do like baseball. I think the players play the game at speeds we wish we could have played it at. You know, they hit it a little further, they run a little faster, they definitely throw it harder, and you know, I enjoy watching them perform.
Greg, you were part of one of the most iconic pitching rotations in history. Did you realize that while you were going through it, or is it something you really didn't appreciate till after you guys retired?
You know, it takes time to do that. And I think as we were going through it, I think we realized that it was pretty special, but at the same time, you were just worried about your next start. And I think when it was all said and done, you look back and you start to appreciate it a lot more than you did as you were actually going through it. But I know we had a lot of fun. It was fun winning every night. It was fun playing golf on the road with those guys, and we had a good time while we were doing it.
Finishing up here with Greg Maddux. My last question for you, Doggy, is if for coaches out there, and I know you coached for a while. Your brother is pitching coach of the world champion Rangers. You know, what's your advice to coaches at the high school level for coaching pitchers?
That's a tough one. I mean, you got to coach each player different. I mean, that's the one thing. You have to understand what this player does well and kind of work off that, coach off that. You know, you can't coach everybody the same way. You can't give up on a player. It's easy to get mad at somebody and give up on a player. You know, you can't quit on a player. You just have to evaluate your players correctly and coach them accordingly to the best of your abilities.
So I have a kind of a final question as well, and we haven't really talked about, you've got 2 kids. We haven't talked about whether they played sports growing up, but I'd like to hear a little bit about that, and you know, what advice you would give to parents who are raising kids that are playing youth sports.
I coached my kid through high school and American Legion and all that, and for me, it was a pleasure. I loved being around him. I loved being around the game. I loved passing down the lessons I learned at his age. And you know, as far as the parents go, I never lied to them. I try to tell them the truth about their kid if they ask. Sometimes they didn't like the answer, but you know, I just wanted to be honest with them as a coach. You know, as a parent watching my kid play, I wanted him to have fun. I wanted him to try to get better each day and have fun while he was doing it, and play for as long as you can, play as long as you can, as hard as you can. Just, you know, and, you know, you look back now, I think he's 26 years old, and over the holidays, he had about 7 or 8 of his high school teammates over, and they all got together and had a good time. So it was pretty cool. You know, he developed the friendships, and you know, one guy's in the Army, one guy's a computer programmer, one guy's selling, you know, merchandise at that, you know, downtown, and you know, they all go their separate ways, but they have that connection. And they also won state in high school too, by the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, thanks for joining us. I know you got to get to a tee time, man. I don't want you to get that game rusty.
Yeah, the sun's coming up. Time to go.
Sun's
Burning
coming up.
daylight.
Oh, man. Doggy, we appreciate it, man. You're one of the best to ever do it, and even a better guy. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Thanks,
All
Greg.
right, appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Hey, guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.